I am Ifakimi, your empowered empath and host. This is your religiosity moment in Black history. No, we weren't Christians. Yes, we had a God, but this is why we so readily accepted Christianity. We are African people. The majority makes this claim on a genetic basis. However, it's not the only determining factor. The way we interact and spiritually, that's the final determinant for me. African people wrongly called African Americans, Black Americans, or whatever they choose to call us at the time. We have been and always will be Africans living wherever we may now live. We, like the Africans brutally stolen, are an extension to one human group, not mutations from the original group. We are the direct continuation of this populace. I've heard many say this, oh, my people weren't from there. They didn't come from there. But a small amount of Africa's population left and went out to populate the rest of the world. Roughly about 10% mutated on all levels, physically, culturally, and were transformed forever, creating each culture. Each culture creates its own distinct approach to an experience or reality, cultural customs, and the way they understood life. Some of the cultures in the 150,000-year-old African incubator showed evidence of harmony with nature, survival of the group, collective responsibility, incorporation, complementary, interdependence, and being primarily mother and female-centered. All of Africa, with varying degrees, exemplified these tenets within their civilized structure. All of Africa recognizes when someone from the clan passes on, the wisdom and assistance can still be accessed. All of Africa has an intimate relationship with the spirit world to the point of being able to gain answers and direction to present-day concerns. The African had common knowledge that everything could be accessed from within. It was the westernization of our minds that cultivated us to think that everything was outside of us. This is how we lived before the modern European invasion of 1440 AD. The enslaved Africans had their own beliefs they brought with them, their old traditions and customs to the New World. It was the slave master who imposed and encroached Christianity on the slaves, well after they had been forbidden their own customs for many years. This religious construct was not meant to empower any of the Africans. It was taught to the slaves to justify their dominance. Black folks don't even pray or serve or look to Jesus in the same way white folks do. It might look like it's the same, but it's not. And it has not empowered Black people in the same manner that it has empowered the whites. This religion was taught to the slaves by their masters or the dominant whites to rationalize white dominance and Black subordination, white command and Black obedience. Christianity, as taught to the African, remained embedded in the church theology of the contemporary Black church. This theology functions to sustain white domination, but also domination by other groups, and Black subordination by getting Blacks to believe in and follow what they think to be the divine objective. In this construct, we were taught race-neutral sayings, proverbs, ethical rules. The outcome of this belief in and practice of these teachings are startlingly different and almost completely opposite from the whites. You see, Christianity was hyperimposed on the slaves at 1900 AD. That makes Christianity the baby of all religions. I'm not persecuting the Christians. I'm just laying out the facts for Black History Month. You know, we can say whatever we want to this month, right? Christianity was imposed forcibly, brutally, unethically. We were not Christians, but we became them. Why? The captors feared the African religions. To this day, they don't understand how the spirit moves. Any religious practices like drumming, rituals, sacrifices, speaking their native tongue, or dancing were immediately forbidden. They knew it was powerful, and they had witnessed the effectiveness of the African traditional religious practices, and it scared them terribly because they saw power. Heavy fines were leveraged, along with brutal force and torture. They even had conversations among the families and neighbors, instructing them to tell on each other. They had them snitching on each other. We're talking about a group of oppressed people who were denied their spiritual practices that were monitored second by second. So when they were spotted doing this, they were feared. It was they didn't understand any of that. Eventually, everything was forgotten except by a select few underground practitioners. The demonization of a culture etched into our very being, and we still feel the result to this day. The falsehood still reverberate in the mind of the modern day Christian, although they continue their practices underground, forcing a once directly open and proud religio-cultural tradition to develop an undeserved reputation of being dark and sinister. In less than one generation, all this was done. Many priests and priestesses who were not murdered were forced to practice underground, and new religion of implanting pathological fear and irrational intimidation of African spiritual science, the simplest spirit manifestations that were once understood by the youngest person in the family structure, no longer embraced or understood the culture. The newly conditioned generation of African Americans, now afraid of their own expressions. So no, my beautiful listeners, we didn't come here as mass Christians. These confused teachings are particularly due to the faulty research linking the ancient invasion-laden pseudo-Christianity of Egypt and Ethiopia to modern-day Africans in the America and elsewhere. There was always someone fearless, willing to continue invoking the spirit of the ancestors, like the native-born Anglo and Gullah Jack at the occasion of Denmark Vesey conspiracy in South Carolina in 1822. You probably heard about that. It's not clear when Gullah Jack was born, but he died in 1822. He was a Bakongo prisoner of war who was sold into slavery in Zanzibar. He eventually landed in Charleston, South Carolina, and was purchased by a man by the name of Paul Pritchard. Gullah Jack had a reputation. He was a powerful root worker with a particular talent for making protective amulets. This was one of the reasons that Telemac, also known as Denmark Vesey, recruited him to plan a revolt consisting of only African-born men against the colonists. Gullah Jack instructed the rebels to eat a specific diet of corn and peanuts the day before the attack and provided them with a crab claw as talisman to keep them safe. He also threatened to put a root on any of the slaves who spoke of this plan. Unfortunately for the rebels, the secret got out and the plan was betrayed, and the revolt was suppressed. All of the plotters, including Gullah Jack, were sentenced to death, but not before Gullah Jack turned around and used that mysterious hand gesture to curse all of the oppressors. Gullah Jack was hanged July 2nd, 1822. Let's not forget the religious exercise that anointed the bloody Nat Turner raid in 1831. The most recent of our greatest victories against the oppressor was the Haitian Revolution. It was successful insurrection by self-liberated slaves against the French colonial rule in Saint Domingue, now the sovereign state of Haiti. The revolt began on August the 22nd, 1791, and ended in 1804 with the former colony's independence, due to the power of spiritual invocation of traditional African beliefs. Dr. and Reverend Charles Colac Jones thought he had introduced God to them and gave them morals, and it would make the relationship better with the slaves. All of this was self-serving. It was not to give the slave religion because they looked at us as less than human. A letter went out stating that the Negroes were slothful, moralless creatures. They didn't honor marriage or anything else. And they had many more untruths. These sermons are printed, and some black and white have made recordings of them on YouTube. You can go and listen to them. The religious instruction of the Negro. They are so horrid until the reader often explains it's for historical purposes. So my black Christian listeners, this is for historical purposes. Dr. Colcock Jones was known as the apostle to the Negroes. He had a very special way about him where he worked his way into their hearts because he would get to know the youngest in the family, the oldest. He showed special interest and kindness to them. They taught Sunday school to the kids first. The master's children many times were the instructors, and they would give instruction during the week and on Sabbath and appoint their own teachers. And eventually they appointed black teachers, but they brought them through their boards of licensing, but they wanted malleable, moldable preachers that they could control what they said. But they were given strict instructions not to show up on a plantation where they were not pre-approved. And then while they were there, they were not to intermeddle with anything that they saw on the plantation. They were supposed to talk about it or repeat it abroad. And they were to make reports of their labor to the executive committee. So you see, they were supposed to ignore all the brutality and everything else that they saw that was probably common to the slaves, what they were probably trying to pray about in church, the brutal cruelty of their master and their oppressor. So they really didn't care anything about the cruelty happening on the plantation. The Reverend Dr. Charles Colcock Jones, who originally wrote the manuscripts that are what I have used for reference, and they are available. There are so many YouTube videos. I had no idea until I read the book, and then I went to just listen to some of those long sermons. And you wouldn't believe the stuff that man had to say, the thoughts that he had, the thought process that he had about us. It seemed like he was describing the captors to me. Anyway, the Dr. Jones, he originally wrote those manuscripts, the religious instruction of the Negroes in the southern states. These books are in print. You can go retrieve them yourself. The benefit of religious instruction of the Negroes was that there would be better understanding of mutual relations of master and servant. There will be greater subordination and decrease in crime amongst the Negroes. Much unpleasant discipline will be saved from the churches. So what that's saying to me is the churches were responsible for whooping the skins off the backs of slaves. The church at large will be benefited, and the souls of our servants will be saved, and we shall leave ourselves of great responsibility. But emphasis was put on Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. This book really clarified what it is that the pastor to the Negro really thought about them. This is an invaluable work for Africans who have always felt ill at ease with Christianity, but never had a scholarly, researched outlet to back up the disgruntled feelings that they had. This work also serves as missing pieces of our African history in America, which succeeds at showing how the Ifa, the Mende, the Malinka, the Iwo, the Igbo, the Akan, what they came here. The Choctaw, the Quapaw, the Cree, the Blackfoot, the Seminole. Practicing. African was made into the Negro-based Jesus-loving Christian. This has been your Black History Moment. Thanks for listening. I send you love, light, peace, and blessings, and the urgency to be inquisitive and to dig and find out for yourself. Odabo.